And what's something I do want to touch on is the fact that like what's so beautiful about this world, and hopefully this narrative that we're going to start speaking about more, at least I'm doing on my platform, but hopefully other platforms as well, is that we don't know what anyone else is going through. We don't know how people view their own bodies or what they think about their own bodies. So I might have these struggles or problems, and to you that might seem ridiculous. And I remember I had a friend call me and say that she was struggling with these problems, and I was thinking like, that's crazy. Like that seems insane to me. Mm-hmm. Because I would kill to look like her. And sometimes when I'm thinking about negative thoughts and when I'm in that kind of pattern, I want to like, you know, be different. But in reality, we don't understand that this is such a widespread conversation. It has almost sometimes nothing to do with the way you look, but the way you think. Like, and that's when you can really realize, oh, this isn't just how we look or what the mirror tells us. This is becoming a disease that affects every body type. And that's what's so sad, beautiful to understand, that it's like you can't look at someone and assume or know how they feel about themselves or what they're thinking about themselves. And it almost, at the same time that it's frustrating, gave me a little bit of peace of mind of like, wow, like she thinks that about herself. Like that's, wow, I don't feel so alone in that. And like, maybe if I'm looking at her thinking that I'm perfect, because she was like, you're perfect. I'm like, no, you're perfect. And I'm looking at other people saying, you're gorgeous, you're perfect. Why do we feel this about everyone else? And we're questioning so much why anyone else would feel this way when we can't even turn to ourselves and say, hey, why am I feeling this way? Like maybe someone, you know, I'm not, you know, going insane, but everyone else kind of is. So we're in this cycle, in this bubble of, we don't realize that everyone else kind of has these problems. And maybe if we just all started to be kinder to ourselves and be kinder to everyone else, which I feel like we're doing more so than being kind to ourselves, that we could continue to spread this narrative. But I wanted to touch on it because I've feelings about other people that have come out. I've thought, wow, that doesn't resonate with me, that you would ever feel that at all. So it's such an interesting thing that the people that we're just walking by on the street might struggle with the same exact things, even if they look different than you do.
Well, and because, you know, body image is body image. It's perception. It's not body reality.
Yep.
It's perception, right? When we talk about body image, we're talking about how we perceive ourselves. What I think is one of the biggest challenges that we have when it comes to body image is that, you know, we get all of these messages when we're so young, when our minds and our identities are developing, that we're supposed to be something that we can never be. And that makes us, that's when, you know, we get the virus and it replicates and we come to feel unworthy in our bodies. Well, that oftentimes happens for people when they're very, very young. You know, when that happens to somebody, they associate fear with their bodies. When they even think about their bodies, it's their threat warning system goes off. They go a little bit into fight and flight. And what we need to understand about this is that fear is a distorting factor. That when we fear something, we actually make it distorted in our mind. We make it a bigger threat. It's kind of like, you know, if a tiger's jumping out of the bush at you, what will happen in your mind, your fight and flight center will light up, and that tiger will look like the biggest tiger you ever saw in your life. That's nature making sure that you get out of there. You fight or you flee. The same thing happens with our bodies. If we're taught to feel like something is wrong with our bodies, we won't be able to see them as we are. We'll see them as we fear they are. They will feel like threats to us. So this is, you know, another thing that maybe people who are listening can practice with. Because in a moment when you're feeling bad about your body, if you can just take some deep breaths and calm your nervous system down, you actually can calm down some of those thoughts that are distorting your image of yourself. And over time, doing that a lot can really help you feel more calm and more comfortable with your body. So maybe we want to put it out, see if there might be like one more question before we sign off.
What you said about how it makes it look like the biggest tiger, and we just look at the worst image. I'm just looking through some comments. When we see someone, we see things that are perfect about them, not knowing that they have imperfections, and the same goes when people see us. That was a good point. I don't know if anyone has
Yeah.
any other questions.
And also we're able to do that with other people because we don't necessarily carry that conditioning, that baggage about that. Their bodies are not necessarily, we don't see those as a threat. So we don't necessarily distort them as we're looking at them. It's our own bodies that maybe we're seeing as a threat because of the way we've been conditioned to
That's
think
so
about
true.
them.
So it's like when we look in the mirror, we're seeing this huge tiger that we think like coming at
Yes.
us, and then else and we think
Yes.
we're calm and we're cool and we can actually just like see them for who they are.
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
looking, some of them are in French, so I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I wish
Yeah,
I had my translator. I do somewhere on my phone, right?
well, one thing I just want to touch on if we don't get any more
Yeah.
questions, um, is like
Yeah.
something I think that a lot of people struggle with when they say, um, like when they assume their life would be different if they looked different. You know, just
Yeah.
kind of creating this ideal of when I, look like this will happen for me, or I'll find a person, or I'll be successful, or this or that. And then also to tie that in with the fact that, which I think is something really interesting that you've taught me, is that we're all supposed to be at a certain weight that's healthy for our own bodies. And we can try, but it's very difficult to manipulate that and kind of create our own what we want to be, when in reality we've been created to kind of just stay at a normal healthy body weight. So maybe just to talk about, the assumptions that if we looked a different way our life would be better, and that also understanding that we are healthily supposed to be the way we are, and just because someone is very thin, or the other way around, it doesn't make them healthy or less healthy a lot of the times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, that first thing you said, you were referring to kind of the magical thinking. You know, if I had that body, my life would be perfect. Or if I had that body, I would have love. And I think that this is something that lots of us, if we really check in and notice, we've thought those things before. Maybe we think them quite often. You know, and it's understandable why we think that. I mean, we've been shown so many times these images of a certain body or a certain look paired with all the things that we want, a sense of belonging and, being loved and getting lots of attention and all those kinds of things. So we've been shown that a lot. So it's reasonable, I think, that we have some magical thinking about this body could make our lives perfect. And then at the same time, it's dangerous thinking because it causes us kind of not to deal with what's actually happening in the situation. I mean, so many times, we will, people will say things like, well, I was out and nobody asked me out and it's because of my body. You know, if only I lost weight or toned this part or had a different color eyes or different kind of hair or different skin or whatever, if only I were different in some way, then I would have been able to get some attention last night. I would have been. But if we really actually peel it back and look at it, we have to look at, what do you do when you go out, and how do you seek the things that you're wanting? Instead of relying on some magical change that's going to get you the attention and the love that you're looking for, what you have to do really is you have to get brave. You have to get a little bit vulnerable. You have to go out in the world and just be you and reach for what it is that you're looking for. Go out and ask somebody else out. Go out and look around and see who you really like and who you're really interested in and talk to them. A lot of times what solves our greatest loneliness is just bravery and just the willingness to vulnerably be who we are as we ask for what it is that we're looking for. It's not really a different body that's going to fix it. And even if it was, we can't, it's magical thinking to think that we can just, as you were just saying a moment ago, decide oh yeah, this is the body that I want. I'm going to diet for 10 weeks to it. Then I'll arrive and I'll be done and all my problems will be solved. Doesn't work that way because, to your point earlier, our brains aren't just going to sit back and allow us to diet ourselves into a place that's unhealthy. Our brains are going to fight back against any attempt to to um, to diet or to over exercise or do those things that create energy deficits and malnutrition. So our brain's going to fight back and we're going to be in a worse place than
Right. And I was seeing some comments about, what do you do if you don't feel confident or someone doesn't like you back, and how not to like relay that back on your body. But I think another thing to touch on what you said was that if we attempt to be something that we're not, and if we're out there trying to conform to this perfect standard that you're actually not, and someone is more attracted to you because of it, then maybe that's not actually the person for you, because they're not there are. They're there
mm-hmm.
for an interpretation of yourself that you think is better. But in reality, when you find, it doesn't even have to be a person, or it could be a job, it could be anything in life. When you find that connection with whatever it may be, as you are, like in that exact moment, that's the connection that deserves you. You don't want to be with
Mm-hmm.
any person that doesn't like you as you are, because they don't deserve you as you are, because you are perfect just as you are. So I think that's something to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so important to know that just because you think that if you did this or did that, your life would be better, that's not necessarily the case. And there's no easy fix. And a lot of the times the fix is internal. Um, Whether it be,
Mm-hmm.
working on your own self-love. I remember you told me anytime I think we were talking about some insecurity I had, and I was like, well, they didn't reach out to me. And you said like, well, did you ever explain, to this person, like you maybe need like a hug right now? And I never really thought of that idea, like to actually tell someone,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'd love a hug. I'm really struggling. I'm going through this. I just need some support right now. I just thought